My brother tricked my parents into selling our land, so I bought it back under another name, okay, and built a business on his regret. I'm a 31-year-old guy. And for as long as I can remember, our family land was the heart of everything we were. It wasn't fancy. Just a quiet stretch of rural earth, 10 acres of open field, bordered by oak trees and whispering wind. But to us, it was sacred. My grandfather used to call it our roots. Every summer, we'd pile into his old pickup, drive out past the county line, and spend weekends there grilling, fishing, fixing fences, and watching storms roll across the hills like something out of a painting. My older brother, Adam, and I would race barefoot across the dirt, climb the same tree every year, build forts with hay bales, and swear we'd someday turn it into something amazing: a wildlife camp, a family lodge, maybe even a retreat center for veterans. "It's ours," Grandpa would say. "Meant for you boys to carry on the name." That promise meant something to me. Still does. After Grandpa passed, the land went to our parents. Nothing changed at first. They kept it in good shape, and we still had holidays there, barbecues in July, bonfires in October. But over time, the gatherings got smaller. Adam got busy chasing money in the city, and I noticed the way his eyes glazed over when the land came up in conversation. He called it a waste of potential. I told myself it was just a phase, that he'd come around. But deep down, I could feel it, that growing divide between what the land meant to me and what it meant to him. To me, it was legacy. To Adam, it was leverage, and that's where everything started to break. I've always been the quiet one in my family, the kid who did his work, kept his head down, and tried to do things the right way. Adam was the opposite. Loud, charming, magnetic. He could walk into any room and have people eating out of his hand within minutes. My parents adored that about him. "He's a natural leader," my dad used to say. "You could learn a thing or two from your brother." That line still stings. It wasn't that I hated Adam. Growing up, I looked up to him. He was my older brother, my example. But even as kids, I noticed something off. Whenever he messed up, crashed Dad's truck, lost his part-time job, borrowed money and never paid it back somehow, he'd twist it around until he was the victim. He had this smooth way of talking that made you doubt your own memory. Meanwhile, if I so much as forgot to mow the lawn, it turned into a lecture about responsibility. I learned early that no matter what I did, I'd always be compared to him and lose. As adults, nothing changed. Adam was the successful one, working flashy jobs, throwing networking parties, and showing up in expensive clothes. I stayed in our hometown, managing a small logistics business and taking care of Mom and Dad when they got older. I wasn't rich, but I was steady. And somehow, that made me invisible. So when Adam came home one weekend talking about doing something productive with the family land, I could see the spark in my parents' eyes before he even finished his pitch. Finally, Mom said, beaming at him, "You always think big, Adam." And that was the moment I realized whatever this was, I was already the outsider in my own family's decision. Adam rolled up the driveway in a rented black Escalade, sunglasses on, exuding that cocky confidence he'd always worn like armor. He walked in with blueprints under one arm and a folder full of buzzwords: investment opportunity, multi-purpose development, long-term passive income. He pitched it like a visionary. "We sell the land to a buyer I know, super low-risk. He'll build a luxury retreat. We get a cut of the profits and retain naming rights. It'll honor Grandpa's legacy and finally turn this place into something real." He was smooth. To smooth, my parents looked impressed. Dad leaned in over the diagrams, and Mom nodded along like it was already decided. I stood there in the corner of the kitchen, arms crossed, pulse pounding. "What's the buyer's name?" I asked. Adam didn't flinch. "Just a friend from college. He's got investors lined up, all vetted. Trust me, it's solid." But I knew Adam's friends. Half of them were sketchy tech brothers. The other half were people he used and dropped when things went south. Why sell it all? I pushed. We could develop it ourselves or lease it. We don't need to hand it over. He smiled like I was a toddler interrupting the grown-ups. You don't get it, man. This is how you scale. This isn't 1950. You either evolve or get left behind. My mom sighed. Can't you just be happy for your brother? There it was again. That same old tuna dome was the hero. And I was the jealous obstacle. But something about the deal didn't sit right. That night, I stayed up researching LLC records. Something told me Adam wasn't just middlemaning this, and what I found made my stomach drop. The buyer? A company registered under the name of Adam's old roommate. A guy I knew had zero money, no business experience, and a history of helping Adam with gray area deals. This wasn't a business opportunity. It was a scam, and he was about to steal the one thing I couldn't replace. A few months later, I drove out to the property to clear my head, nearly slammed on the brakes. There it was. A bright red for sale sign stuck in the soil like a knife through the heart. I stood there, staring at it, waiting for it to make sense. My chest felt tight. The kind of tight that comes when your brain refuses to accept what your eyes are seeing. I called my mom immediately. What the hell is going on? Why is there a sign on the land? She sounded cheerful. Oh, Adam's already handled it. The deal went through last week. Isn't that great? We'll finally have something profitable from all that empty space. Wait, what do you mean the deal went through? I could barely get the words out. She hesitated. It's done, honey. The papers are signed. I hung up without saying another word the next day. I confronted Adam. He met me at a cafe downtown, casual as ever, sipping a latte like nothing had happened. You went behind my back, I said. You sold the land, he smirked. Correction, Mom and Dad sold it. I just made it happen. They trust me to handle real business. I wanted to hit him. You lied. That company isn't real. It's your buddy's name on a fake LLC. T shrugged. So, you think I'm stupid enough to put my own name on it? Relax. Everyone wins here. You'll get your cut, my cut. I nearly laughed. You just sold our legacy for a quick payday. He leaned back, smirking wider. Legacy doesn't pay the bills, little brother. That sentence broke something in me. That land was my grandfather's blood, my childhood, my peace. And in one slick move, Adam had turned it into a transaction. It wasn't just betrayal, it was desecration, and in that moment, standing across from his smug grin, I made a silent promise. If he thought he'd buried me under that sale, he was dead wrong. I didn't talk to Adam after that. Not for weeks. Then months. Then a year. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. He didn't seem to notice or care. I watched from a distance as he paraded around like he'd just closed a Fortune 500 merger. New car, new apartment. Flashy clothes. Instagram stories from rooftop bars with captions like, "Make moves, not excuses." Meanwhile, I moved into a one-bedroom above an old mechanic shop, pouring every waking hour into work. I started studying real estate law, LLC loopholes, tax codes, property auctions. I devoured everything I could get my hands on. I didn't know what I was building yet, but I knew it started with understanding exactly how he pulled it off. My parents tried to check in, but our calls were short and hollow. They still didn't get it. Adam meant well, my mom would say. It's not like he stole it. It was a business decision. They didn't understand what he took from me. It wasn't about money. It was the principle. It was the land where I buried my dog when I was 12. The hill where I carved my initials into the bark of that oak tree with Grandpa. The quiet, the history. The only piece of my childhood that hadn't rotted away. Now it was just another empty field, fenced off with a cheap wooden sign that read, "Coming soon, Whisper Pines Retreat." A name so fake it made my stomach turn. Asterisk, but the longer I stayed quiet, the more it burned. Until one night, sitting in that cramped apartment, surrounded by blueprints and real estate books, I whispered something out loud I didn't even know I believed until I said it. "I'm gonna take it back." And in that moment, something in me snapped into focus. Not with rage, with resolve. It happened on a Tuesday. I was at this local real estate mixer, stuffy networking event with too much cologne and too many empty handshakes. I wasn't even supposed to be there, but a friend convinced me to show up and put myself out there. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to listen. That's when I overheard a conversation near the bar to older guys. One of them, a former county clerk, were swapping horror stories about land deals gone sideways. One of them casually mentioned, "We've got a property out past Route 14 Whisper Pines or something. The owners defaulted on taxes. Might hit auction next quarter." My ears rang. I turned, heart racing. "Did you say Whisper Pines?" He nodded. "Yeah, something like that. Poorly registered LLC, no tax payments in over a year. Nobody's maintaining it either. Probably gets scooped up for pennies." I walked outside, pulled up the county records on my phone, hands shaking. There it was. The LLC that bought the land had been flagged for delinquency. No business license renewals. No tax filings. No proof of construction. It was collapsing. Adam hadn't just lied, he couldn't even keep the scam running. I spent the next 48 hours doing nothing but preparing. I contacted a real estate attorney, formed a new shell company under a clean name, pulled together every dime I'd saved, and took out a short-term business loan. I made the bid before the auction was public. Quiet, legal, clean. 2 weeks later, I got the call. My offer was accepted. The land was mine again, but I wasn't the same person who lost it. This time, a tie wasn't sentimental. I wasn't desperate. I was calculated. Adam had tried to erase my legacy, so I was going to build something on top of his failure. Bury his greed beneath my success. The first time I stepped back onto that land, my land, I didn't feel joy. I felt weight. The grass was taller, the fences falling apart, and the old oak tree had been hacked at for what looked like surveying. But beneath the weeds and rot, I could still feel it. That pulse. That quiet energy my grandfather used to talk about. I stood in the center of the field and whispered, "I got it back." Not loud, not triumphant, just grounded. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not friends, definitely not Adam. I wanted this clean. I wanted to build without interference, instead of some flashy luxury resort like Adam dreamed up. I started slow, an eco-retreat center with cabins built from reclaimed wood, solar energy, and a working garden. I partnered with local contractors, hired folks from nearby towns, named it something real. Stillwater Hollow. It wasn't just about proving something. It was about doing it right. Every weekend, I walked the land. Remembered where Grandpa used to sit and sip coffee at dawn. Where Adam and I built our first treehouse before he started seeing dollar signs in the dirt. I kept the build quiet for a year. Let the trees grow back. Repaired the fences. Poured myself into the project, and all the while, Adam had no idea. He probably still thought the land was sitting in limbo or waiting for the next investor. But I wasn't building for investors. I was building for the boy who used to run barefoot through these fields. The man who was overlooked, and the legacy that nearly got erased by greed. And somewhere in that silent process, I felt it again, not revenge, not bitterness, pride, but I wasn't done yet. Not until he saw it with his own eyes. It started with a text from my mom. Thinking of doing a family reunion this fall, maybe something outdoors. Adam said you might know of a nice venue. I stared at the screen for a full minute before the corner of my mouth twitched. Of course he did. At that point, Stillwater Hollow had quietly built a reputation, private bookings, quiet word of mouth, a few glowing reviews from small blogs that specialized in off-grid getaways. I'd intentionally avoided putting my name anywhere public. The business was registered under my shell company, and the staff had no clue who really owned it. I wanted it that way, so I replied, I might know a place. I'll send you the contact. I booked it under their names. Gave them a discounted group rate. Didn't tell the staff anything beyond treat them like VIPs. And on a crisp October morning, I watched from the tree line as my entire family rolled onto the property in SUVs and rental vans, laughing and pointing at the fall colors and rustic cabins. Wow. This is beautiful, my aunt gushed. Place must have cost a fortune, my dad muttered. Adjusting his jacket, Adam arrived last, stepping out in a designer coat and sunglasses. Surveying the property like he was above it, he had no idea. I stayed hidden that whole first day, watching from a distance like a ghost. Staff brought them fresh cider. A fire crackled in the main lodge. Kids ran through the field where I once buried my dog. Everything looked perfect. But I wasn't interested in perfect. I was interested in truth. And the next morning, when they all gathered for brunch on the main deck, I walked out of the front lodge and watched every jaw drop, especially Adam's. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, and in a way, maybe he had. Adam didn't speak at first. He just stared as wide, mouth slightly open, like his brain was still trying to catch up with what he was seeing. My mom was the first to break the silence. Wait, what are you doing here? I stepped up onto the deck, hands in my jacket pockets, calm. I'm not here, I said. I own this place. You could feel the silence drop like a stone in a pond. My dad looked confused. You mean you work here? I shook my head. No, I bought the land back, quietly, 2 years ago. Built this from scratch. While you all thought it was just some abandoned project. While Adam bragged about selling it. Adam's face flushed. That's not possible, he muttered. There's no way you had the money. I figured it out, I said. Learned how to play the same game you used to steal it. Only difference is, I did it legally. And I didn't need to lie to anyone to do it. He laughed, but there was no confidence behind it. You seriously went through all that just to prove a point? I looked at him square in the eye. No, Adam, I went through all that to rebuild what you destroyed. I pulled a folder from my jacket copies of the purchase agreement. The tax records, the revoked LLC registration under his buddy's name. I laid it on the table in front of our parents. You sold the land under false pretenses. Lied to mom and dad, pocketed cash through a fake company. And I have proof of all of it. Adam's smugness crumbled. My mom looked pale. My dad didn't say a word. For once, the golden boy had no script to hide behind. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't yell. I just told the truth and let it sit there like a stone in their throats. No one touched their food after that. My mom stared down at the table, fingers trembling around her coffee cup. My dad sat stone still, lips pressed into a line so tight it looked painful. And Adam, he looked like a balloon someone had stuck a pin through, deflated, exposed. He didn't deny it. Not once. He just stood there, eyes darting from the papers to my face, to the stunned silence around him. Then he scoffed, shook his head, and muttered, "You always had a chip on your shoulder." And he walked off the deck. That was it. No apology. No explanation. Just a coward's exit. My parents didn't follow him. They didn't say much to me either. After a few awkward minutes, Mom stood and said she needed a moment. Dad just nodded once more to himself, then to me and wandered off toward the cabins. Later that night, I sat by the fire pit alone, staring into the flames. Guests were still laughing inside the main lodge, but I felt hollow. I thought exposing Adam would bring me peace, vindication, satisfaction, but it just felt quiet. A few days after the reunion, my mom called. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. She said she and Dad had no idea how deep Adam's deception ran, that they were sorry, that maybe they hadn't seen me clearly all those years. I didn't know what to say. Forgiveness is strange. It doesn't show up when you expect it to. Sometimes it doesn't show up at all. What I did know was this: the land was finally mine, not just in paperwork, but in spirit. And Adam, he didn't just lose the land, he lost the illusion of being untouchable. And I didn't have to raise my voice to make that happen. Just let the truth do its work. 3 weeks passed. No word from Adam. No surprise there. I figured he'd just slithered back into his usual circles, telling half-truths to people too dazzled to ask questions. I was back to work booking new retreat guests, expanding the garden, overseeing the build of 3 more cabins. Life felt still, stable. Asterisk then, on a rainy Thursday morning, I found an envelope in the mailbox at the lodge. No return address. Just my name, written in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. It was from Adam. "I guess you win." It started, but the rest wasn't what I expected. There was no sarcasm, no deflection. It wasn't an apology wrapped in excuses. It was raw, honest. He admitted everything, how he always felt like he had to perform to be loved. How lying had become second nature. How he envied the way I stayed grounded. He said he thought selling the land would finally make him feel like someone important. But all it did was leave him empty. "I didn't know how to be a brother," he wrote. "I only knew how to compete. I'm sorry I turned something beautiful into a transaction." He didn't ask for forgiveness. Didn't even leave a phone number, just a signature. And a final line: "I hope you build something real there." I never could. I sat in my office for a long time, holding the letter in my hands. It didn't fix anything, but it cracked open something in me I didn't know was still locked: grief, maybe, or closure. I didn't respond. Not yet. But I folded the letter carefully and tucked it into the drawer where I kept my grandfather's old field notebook. One legacy built on truth. The other? A warning of what happens when you forget what really matters. I walk the land every morning before the staff arrive. Just me, the fog, and the soft crunch of gravel beneath my boots. There's a spot near the back fence lying under. That old oak tree that I always stop at. The same one Adam and I used to climb as kids. The same one where Grandpa carved our initials into the bark with his pocket knife. Time's worn those letters down, but they're still there. Faint, but holding on. Sometimes I wonder what Grandpa would say if he saw all of this now. The cabins, the orchard, the rows of wildflowers planted where the old rusted well used to be. But I think I know. He'd say I honored it. Not with money, not with noise, but with something real, something rooted. My parents came back for a visit last month. Quietly, no fanfare, just the 2 of them. We walked the grounds. And my mom cried when she saw the plaque-eyed place beneath the oak tree, Stillwater Hollow, in memory of those who taught us where we belong. My dad didn't say much, but he shook my hand, firm, and for the first time in my life, I think he saw me, not as the afterthought, not as Adam's shadow, but as the man who rebuilt what everyone else was willing to sell. As for Adam, I don't know where he is. Maybe he's trying to start over. Maybe not, but I'm not waiting on his next move anymore. I've got a business to run, a legacy to protect, a place that people now come to find peace. Just like I did. Because this land isn't just dirt and trees. It's proof that even after betrayal, even after silence, you can still grow something that lasts. And that, more than revenge, is the sweetest ending I could have asked for.